headed with those people that are the slackers. I mean, these are great little examples that you can actually put on your LinkedIn profile and your resume and are highly relevant.
Welcome to Additive Real Talk, where we discuss real stories, real experiences, and what it's really like to be living in Australia. Today I have with me the lovely Anita and Karalyn. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you so much.
I am so excited to have both of you because we're going to be discussing about how to start a career in Australia. What do we need to do to build that confidence and shift that mindset? Much needed for our students. So before I start, tell us a little bit about yourself and your work in the international education space.
Oh, look at us both being so polite. So Confidence Hackers started, I think, about 9 years ago. And we've been working with international students, helping them build confidence, courage, and to be able to live the life that they really want to have rather than the life that they think that they can have.
What's that? Karalyn?
Yeah, so I founded Interview IQ and the Straight to Shortlist Challenge to help people tap into the hidden market and find jobs before they get advertised. So I've been running that since about 2010. I have to think back. And I have worked with a lot of international students and a lot of skilled migrants. In fact, they're probably the biggest chunk of my client base.
I love that. I feel like both of you have so many insights to share with students today. So jumping right in, we're talking about starting a career in Australia, and I know this is a big one for students. The number one question that I have for you is what are the essential steps that students should take to prepare for their careers while studying in Australia?
Well, that is a big question, but actually it's something I think that people generally struggle with is you've started this course and, you know, getting into that kind of mindset that you've got to prepare for your career outside that. The thing I think that people struggle with and that they should focus on is really thinking about what it is that lights them up and what it is that they enjoy, because the clues will be there while you're actually studying along the way. That builds a really solid foundation for actually then going to be able to present yourself to an employer. That self-insight, self-directed career. It's really, really digging into what it is that you actually enjoy and what you think you might be good at, and that's a great foundation to start to build your career and obviously, you know, target your job search efforts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I think a lot of students don't really think about their future career until the end of their studies. And there's opportunities from the moment you step in the country to start that journey towards professional employment. And I think a lot of students miss that. And when they do, then all of a sudden, the closer it gets to the end of their studies, it's like this mad scramble of, I've got to get a job, a professional job. And that can all be avoided by starting the process early.
That is so true. I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because I often say it's day one that you start thinking about that long-term career goals that you have. It's not just about your study, but day one is where you can start looking for volunteer positions, part-time jobs, internships. It's so important to start that journey from day one. And also what you mentioned, I feel like passion is something so important. A lot of the times people and students can get distracted. And it's easy to get distracted by other things that are happening, other things that would probably give you short-term gratification. But it is so important to stay focused, stay close to the idea, the main goal, why you came to the country in the first place, and stick to that. I feel like students need to remember that for sure. The second question I have for you is, how could you what would we discuss the significance of internships and part-time jobs for students, and how can they make the most of these opportunities, and are they even important? I feel like students are like, should we do this? Should we not do this? Yeah.
I think they're absolutely important. Even, you know, the Macca's job, the Uber driving, the delivery, anything that gets you out meeting people, increasing your confidence, increasing your language skills. But these are also great examples of things that you can actually put on your resume. So if you think about these as like a professional job, you know, employers are looking for every little demonstration of professional experience that you've actually got. So they're really, really important. The thing about internships is to treat those too in the same way that you might treat a professional job, but look for opportunities that, you might be, doing a particular project. Well, with that project, have a look at how that might benefit your employer. So what are they looking for you to demonstrate, and make that relevant to, what you're seeking to do within your internship, because it's another great thing that you can put on your LinkedIn profile and put on your CV.
Absolutely.
As the former shyest person in the universe, part-time work was a really important thing for me while I was studying, to build, as Karalyn said, to build confidence and to build the skills and the courage to know that I actually can do things, rather than that mindset and that thinking that would just go around and around and around. Oh, what if? What if I say this? What if I do this? I'm not sure I can. Having those part-time jobs builds those skills, and you don't even really know that you're building them. So it's this kind of sneaky secret way of building skills that you can look back at years later and go, oh yeah, I learned how to do that in my part-time job at the bakery. It's a really fantastic way to build those people skills, networking, how to start conversations, how to have those just incidental kind of moments.
Love that. I think that students will, from this, realize how important it is to, look for these opportunities and why they're important to start with. My next question being, can university assignments and projects help students outside of university? Do you reckon? What would you say to that?
100%.
Yeah.
I think every single person ever that's been in university hates group assignments. Without exception, I think everybody hates them, because there's always that one person or two people in the group that do nothing.
I can confirm.
Yes. They do nothing, and then they show up at the end going, yeah, I want the marks as well. And navigating that, having those conversations, finding the courage within yourself to have those real conversations, because what I didn't realise when I was doing those group work assignments was this is actually, if I'd known that this was preparing me for group work in the workplace and those projects that always involve other people, that there's always going to be that one person that sort of slacks off or whatever. How do you manage that? So in university, that becomes a really safe space to be able to practice learning how to have those conversations, talking to managers and bosses about how do I navigate this?
Absolutely.
And building those skills. So I think absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, just, adding on that, a university assignment is a project, right? So you could think of it as a project that you've either been a leader of or a contributor to, and all those skills in terms of, what have you actually put in place to complete that? How have you set up the timescale? How have you run those meetings? How have you communicated with those people that are the slackers? I mean, these are great little examples that you can actually put on your LinkedIn profile and your resume, and are highly relevant to what people are looking for.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with you. And, you mentioned putting it on your LinkedIn profile, and that's exactly what I did with my assignments after I got graded. I wanted to make this something of more of a conversation starter, or something that I could inform my network, letting them know this is what I've done, this is what I'm thinking, even if it's a portfolio that I'm creating for, say, the marketing strategy for Starbucks, for instance. This is what my thoughts are on this, and it could, be something that might be of interest to other people. So glad that you mentioned that. Yeah. That's a really good point. Many international students struggle with building a professional network in a new country. What advice would you have for them to overcome this challenge?
You want me to jump in on that one? Your network's already there, I think. You've got, first of all, the people that you're at uni with, but there's also the people that have gone gone before you. So what I tell people to do as part of the Straight to Shortlist Challenge is to look for somebody that I call a trailblazer. So somebody that might be doing what you want to do in a couple of years' time, but still can relate and connect to what your experience at university. And you can seek those people out because you've got an affinity with them, and ask their advice around, what it took to get that job, what that job really involves. But what you're actually doing at that point is you're putting yourself on their radar. So LinkedIn's a great resource for that. University alumni, often you have careers days at university where they invite ex-students back, instant, go and chat up the speaker there. So you kind of want to find those people that have done what you want to do, what you want to do in the future, and go and have those conversations.
Love that.
Lots of other things you can do, but that's, pretty much my number one tip, basically.
My number one tip, because again, shyest person, former shyest person in the universe, like if I was invited to a thing, a networking function or a careers fair or something like that, I either would find myself mostly not going because of the fear that I had within myself. So building courage. Courage comes before confidence. That was one thing I wish I had known many, many, many years ago. But building on the courage as international students, like there's so much courage that you have just in even leaving your home country. Everything you've ever known to come to this weird country at the bottom of the world where everything is upside down, the water spins the wrong way. Like everything is weird. Yes.
I thought that was an urban myth.
No,
that's true.
So building that courage space to put yourself out there and then learning skills of how to actually network, because it is a skill and it's really a lot more simple than I possibly imagined. There's a number of steps, but a lot of it starts with the courage to actually register, turn up, initiate those conversations. Even on LinkedIn, that takes a lot of courage.
It does.
Yeah, to knock on people's virtual door and go, "Hi, I'm me."
Can I just add something to that, though? Because I think people are, what I've found is, in helping people do that, like to reach out to somebody that they may not know, is the worst thing that can happen is you get ignored, right? Nobody ever says, "How dare you find me interesting enough to, want to speak to me?" And I have this little saying, which is, I don't know if you can put it on the podcast, but don't say yes, right?
Right.
Nice people say yes. So sometimes the courage is just to put your toe in the water and just try, because as Anita says, that's what gives you confidence, those little steps that you can actually take. But the thing to know is nasty people don't reply. That's the worst response that you'll get. So.
Yeah. The worst response is ghosting. Silence is nothing. And like honestly, I now have nearly 5,000 connections on LinkedIn, and what I've found is like I have sent contact requests out to obviously hundreds and thousands of people, and there's still a whole list of people in that I've sent invitations and haven't heard back from them, and every now and then I just go, you know what, delete.
So you can do that. That's
100% you can do that.
100%. Like I feel like students should know this other side of connecting with people on LinkedIn. And both of you are so active, and I feel like both of you have such great content on LinkedIn. I do encourage students to head over to LinkedIn and connect with both of you.
For sure.
So shout out to both of your LinkedIn profiles for sure. My next question, I do want to talk about how can students get on the radar of employers or recruiters and find opportunities offline. We've talked about LinkedIn. We've talked about them looking for opportunities there. But how do you think they can do that offline?
Get along to those kind of career fairs. A lot of people don't take the opportunity just to initiate a conversation. But sometimes at those places, and I heard this from somebody who says there's a list, right? So, you might be applying for the graduate program, but employers expect that they're going to get thousands. So if you make yourself known to the person in the booth and have a conversation about what it's like to work for them, because that's why they're there, quite often they'll take a note of your name and remember you. And you can put that in any application that you have as well. The other thing too is, I reckon, I think going back to what Anita said, is that volunteering. Australians are big volunteer people. We like to do that. I've seen people meet fantastic people actually, just volunteering for a cause that they're interested in, because, you're then kind of presenting yourself as like a professional person who wants to get involved, and then people start to look for opportunities to actually help you as well. So there's a lot of randomness in this, but the thing is that if you don't kind of put yourself out there, that kind of happenstance or that lucky break never actually happens. And it happens far faster when you're actually doing something like volunteering or doing something that you actually enjoy as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
100%. Volunteering is one of the greatest and I think most underrated opportunities, because not only does it give you those opportunities to connect with other humans in something that you have an interest in, but it also builds you as a human. Yeah, and the more confident that you are as a human, the easier it is to get jobs all the time. Like I have had jobs where I probably didn't really have the skills, and I've got the job because I've gone in with energy and enthusiasm and confidence rather than going in like all kind of crunched up and shy and like, I've won jobs because I've gone in shoulders back, head up, shaking hands, looked people in the eye.
Absolutely.
Those kind of things. And added to, like I had one boss when I left said, Anita, you've like changed the culture of the office. I'm like, this is the greatest like honour ever. And it was just by bringing some of that energy. And I think the more we can bring that from ourselves, like really from ourselves in a genuine way, jobs just happen.
Yeah. Question actually then, and I've had the same experience, is it comes up that you're looking for a job, and then it just comes up with what are you looking to do? And so it's much more of a natural type of thing to say, I'm looking for a job as a business analyst. And then that person often goes and thinks about, who can I connect you to? Or I've heard of somebody, or, you should go and speak to that person. And that's the hidden job market, and that's how those opportunities actually happen.
What I'm getting from this is the key thing is to show up. Show up to events. Show up to your job with the energy that you would wish for. I feel like showing up is the number one thing. Yeah. My next question be, what are some of the misconceptions or mistakes that students might make during like job interviews or in their resumes, and how can they avoid them? There's so many, but
here's a list. I wrote a list. Okay, so I guess it's one thing I think is actually trying to understand what that job's about, because an interview really is them looking at you to decide whether you're a fit, and you looking at them to decide whether you fit that organisation. But try as much as you can to actually, and it sounds really silly to say this, but understand the job that you're going for. Because quite often on paper, the job reads differently from what the job actually is. So if you understand, and a great question to ask is, what will I be doing every day, right? Or what does a typical day or what does a typical week look like? Because you'll then get a completely different answer to what you've actually read on paper. So I encourage people to, as much as possible, contact the recruiter and ask those questions. Even see if you can find somebody within that organisation. Even see if you can find somebody doing that kind of job, just to really educate yourself about, in reality, what is this job? And then look at, okay, how can I, look at those kind of key skills and go, how can I give an example that demonstrates me being able to do that kind of job, and do that kind of prep work before you go into the interview as well. So really ground yourself in what that job actually is.
Yeah.
Get your examples out, matching up to the skills, practice with a friend, practice with a coach, practice with mirror, whatever. But the more you actually say things out loud, the more confident you get around those things, and you start to believe those as well. So that's my number one tip, is really digging into, well, what is this job in reality?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, it's a really good point.
I second the saying things out loud, practicing interview skills out loud. As a public speaker, I learnt the hard way that when you practice, but you don't practice the words out loud, if you just practice them over and over and over in your head, when you actually have to come to saying the words out loud, something weird happens between your brain and your mouth. It's like there's all of a sudden this interference in between, and your brain knows what it wants to say, but your mouth starts going and doesn't even know how to put two words together.
Yeah.
So practicing out loud with a partner, with a friend, with a coach, with somebody, or just in the mirror, but out loud, it is so impactful. As I said, I learned the hard way when I went to present a workshop and went, and I felt like, oh my God, I know all these things. I know I've been practicing for weeks in my head.
Absolutely. In your head is so much different from practicing out loud.
It's like how, you sound amazing when you sing. Or maybe that's just me. I sound amazing when I sing inside my head, and as soon as I open my mouth.
I'm with you there.
Yeah.
So we won't be singing it. Just saying, we don't have a song and dance routine.
I think there's so much there for students who might have a different perception of when they start looking for a job in Australia, but I think you've covered so many good points here. I want to shift our conversation to confidence, building confidence, and shifting that mindset as well, which is much needed. International students often experience so much stress and homesickness when they come to a new country like Australia. How can they build on maintaining confidence to cope with these challenges, and what can they do?
I think for me, one of the things that I've noticed that's helped the most, and I've worked now with about 10,000 international students, and one thing that's helped the most is, it sounds weird, breathing. We forget to breathe and breathe with intention. When we're stressed, our breath gets really shallow, and we forget that actually our brain takes 20% of the oxygen that we breathe in. So the more oxygen that we have going through our body, the more we can feed our brain, the more calm we can be. So taking those moments to stop, take a pause, and breathe in through your nose all the way down to your belly, and then breathing out through your mouth. Just nice and gentle. We're not gulping for air, but just those beautiful breaths helps you reconnect to what's actually real, what's true, because our brains can start making a whole lot of things a whole lot worse really, really fast. Breathing just helps you to calm that internal farm that we all have, where there's all these cows and sheep and goats going off, all that kind of stuff. It helps us just to calm that down a bit and get to this space of centeredness. And I think that helps in so many spaces, not just for homesickness, not just for stress in that, but job stress, before you go into an interview, before an exam, before you're leaving home, all of those things. A simple act of breathing with intention.
So true.
1 minute. That's all you need to do.
Scientifically proven.
Yes.
I learned that from Huberman. The podcast was amazing. But breathing is something so basic, but we forget that regulating it, we can really control our stress levels.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think works really well is actually, if you say to somebody, stop stressing, stop worrying, I mean, that just does not work.
The opposite.
So it's just kind of building some things into your routine that are good for you, but you're not sure, you're not sure why, but they do work. And one of them, I think, is having a good friendship group, right? A really good friendship group, a really good community of people that get you, that care about you, that you can talk about what's worrying. It becomes a normalization type thing, and that are your cheerleaders and champions. And you can feel that kind of stress relief, like actually kind of draining from your body when you actually are able to have those good conversations with good friends in a good, a good community setting as well. So, yeah.
So important. If you don't have friends here and you're super new, I feel like you can still video call friends back home, or definitely venting is so important just to get all of that anxiousness out of your head, for sure.
Look, when there's a lot of stress, I think, even doing something like, punching your pillow, right? Like moving that energy and that stress through your body. Laughing is the greatest medicine. And there's plenty of YouTube videos around laughter yoga, which is absolutely fantastic. I've got a friend who does it, and it's like laughing, making yourself laugh until you actually laughing. And it is the greatest feeling. It's like so energizing. Again, you're getting a lot of air into your body, oxygen into your body, but it's this whole space of moving your body, being silly, right? Because I think we're getting stuck in that space of terminal seriousness where everything is so serious and so heavy. How do we just bring some more lightness to things?
It's good to remember that we're just a speck in the universe.
Yes.
Always a good one.
Yeah.
Next question is, how can students build a strong support system and feel safe and ask for help in Australia, in a new country?
Great question. I think in Australia, it's normal to seek help, to ask for help, to seek friends, to get counsel, to get coaching, all of those kinds of things. It's like super normal here. And I think that, once we start understanding that, okay, maybe at home it wasn't the done thing, it wasn't what was expected or what was normal or encouraged even, and was probably actively discouraged rather than encouraged. Here, it's like flip everything on its head. If you need help, you can put your hand up and people will come and help you. I think especially in Australia, there's such a culture of wanting to help a mate, help a friend. Anybody who's in need, there is people and places that just want to wrap their arms around you and give you the support in whatever way it is that you need. And so I think, these conversations of normalising that also go a really long way to help those new students particularly. But I think there's students that have been around in Australia for a number of years also that kind of are carrying still the think from home of, if I ask for help, I'm weak. I'm really weak, so I don't want anybody to see my weaknesses.
Yeah.
And here we're like, we've all got weaknesses, right? Like a lot. So come, let's embrace you. Let's help you, support each other. Because when you do that for somebody else, it feels amazing. So we want to help you because then you can help us as well. It's that whole space of putting the oxygen mask on. You got to put on yourself and then you can help others. So when you're in a really good space, then you can pay it forward to somebody else as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like a lot of the students that come from these different countries might not be familiar with resources or even reaching out, I think is a big deal. What am I going to gain from talking to a counselor? Not much. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. I'll just try it. There's no harm in trying. And we don't know everything. And it's okay to reach out.
Absolutely. And I think, dealing with those problems when they're small means that they don't become big, like anything, like there's that saying, a stitch in time saves 9 and an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, all those kinds of things. And they're sayings for a reason, because when we help and when we seek that help, when things are a challenge, but not an overwhelming, monster kind of crawling on top of us, then those things can be easily managed. But when they start getting bigger and bigger and bigger, that's when the challenges become really heavy. And we don't need to be carrying all those burdens before we actually go and seek help.
I love the idea too of that kind of, it's a lot of the work Anita does and other professionals in this space is like reminding you of how many times you've shown courage, right? So even that act of kind of writing down every day a little example of where you've shown courage, courage to come to Australia, courage to navigate the public transport system, courage to ask for help, courage to learn English, courage. Like you can find thousands of examples if you sit back and reflect on where you've actually shown courage. And it's a really powerful reminder to set yourself up every day with that little habit of going, what did I do today that I'm really proud of, that I showed courage in? And then you start to look for those examples, which is a reminder as well. And to get help, it isn't a shameful thing. I think that's the thing that you alluded to, that level of I'm embarrassed to get help because I'm flawed and it's wrong and I'm bad and whatever. It's actually an act of courage because you're making yourself vulnerable, and then that's another little thing in your toolkit that you can reflect on that you've done as well. So
absolutely, I think there's something beautiful about therapy or counseling. Even it's just you want to be better. You want to be a better version of yourself. I think we should start looking at it like that. The fear of failure can be paralyzing for students. what advice can you provide for changing a fear-based mindset to that's more growth-oriented?
From a human behaviour perspective, fear and love can't coexist. So you can either be in a space of fear or you can be in a space of love, but you can't be in both at the same time. So that means that the individual gets to choose. They are the boss of themselves. Like, we're all the boss of ourselves. And that means you get to choose, okay, do I choose fear or do I choose love? Now, for like a lot of people, love is a very big kind of concept. So a step towards that is gratitude. How can I be choosing gratitude every moment of my life? Because it is a choice. I used to be, as the shyest person in the universe, used to choose fear over everything, and it stopped me from having not just a full life, but like even a half life. Like, I was living this shadow life before, and I was choosing fear all the time. And once I started realizing, maybe if I just start looking at gratitude, what can I be grateful for here? It started opening up this entirely different conversation in my head, an entirely different world where you could see, oh, there's actually good things that are going on, rather than the universe is conspiring against me. Mm-hmm. It started becoming this space of, oh, well, I can be grateful for the sun. I can be grateful for when it rains even. I can be grateful for anything. I can be grateful for the food that I'm eating. I'm grateful that I can turn on a tap and there's water. I can be grateful I turn on the switch and there's electricity. But what's the smallest things? And that's what I've challenged a lot of students with, because they get into the space of, oh, I can be grateful when, I've graduated. And it's like, yeah, that only happens like once every how many years? How can I be grateful many, many times during the day? And how can I start creating that as a habit?
Yeah, I feel like bad things happen to everybody.
Yeah.
But it really is the choice that you mentioned. You really need to choose to not be fearful of, hey, now one thing that's gone wrong in my life, now everything will turn out bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, bad things happen, but we can all move on from it and just
What's
look at
the lesson that we can take from it, right? Because there's a lesson. It's sort of like the blessing, right? The blessing and the lesson. What is it that I can take from even this bad thing that's happened? What can I learn from that so I don't have to make that mistake again? I don't have to go down that path again. Or I don't have to go so far down that path before I make a decision differently. Those kind of things create a lot more confidence, a lot more courage, a really different way of looking at life in a way that becomes beautiful rather than everything becoming heavy.
Yeah, absolutely. I asked a few questions about, how important do you think is building confidence in a new country? And some students came back talking about their point of view. And Kanchana from Kaplan Business School, graduate student, she says, to successfully navigate life as an international student in a new country, focus on self-love. More often we forget about that. Self-care and self-compassion, that's another one. She says, prioritize networking. And another student, Ayushi, who's a Monash University student, she says, avoid comparisons. I love that. I love that she said that, because it is all about living your own life, living your own journey, and not being like, hey, this person got that job and I didn't get this job, and then, spiraling out of control. That can there's no good way of ending that thought.
Go for it.
Over the course of my career, I've coached a lot of people that have been high achievers, right? Often what drives that is anxiety. They're not the most happy and well-balanced people. So if you're comparing yourself to that, what is behind that is a big chunk of a real drive to succeed, but an anxiety around that. So it doesn't make you've got to play your own game. You've got to look at what you're good at and what you enjoy and where you thrive, because then that's where you're going to have the greatest enjoyment and take that into whatever you're doing. If you sit and compare yourself to people that are super high achievers, often I just see behind that is not what's making them happy. It's, this real pressure to perform. And at the end of the day, there's all of this other stuff that comes up that doesn't make them the best version of themselves in society as well. So, yeah, that comparison thing is absolutely evil in terms of, well, in my book.
100%.
I invented this horrible disease called comparisonitis. And it's where you are comparing the deepest, darkest parts of you to the shiniest, outsidiest, brightest parts of other people. It's when we start comparing, the Instagram life of other people to what's my reality. And I don't know a single person whose Instagram feed matches their actual life, their actual reality. It's like the holiday brochure of our life. And like I went to Puerto Rico a number of years ago, and you're like, oh, Puerto Rico. Oh, and there's the beaches and the sea turtles and the sun and the this and the this and this. And they don't tell you about all the mosquitoes, right? That's not on any holiday brochure is all the mosquitoes. But I came home covered in mosquito bites. But every photo that I took in Puerto Rico is, look at the this, not a single photo of the 40 mosquito bites on one leg, right? And that's that space of comparisonitis, because people look at that and go, oh my God, like she's having the best life ever.
Yeah.
And nobody knows that I was miserable. Miserable in a great location, but I was actually miserable with all these mosquito bites everywhere.
Absolutely. Yeah. I feel like you mentioned, Karalyn, like it's like you will never reach your best version if you compare. Like I feel like that's just losing focus on your own journey and your own evolution in life.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we are wrapping up and coming to the end of the episode.
Much we could take.
I know. There's so many amazing things that we already covered, but I'm gonna ask you, Anita, I'm going to ask you, Karalyn, I'm going to be like, what is the one piece of advice that you would want students to take away from this episode, if that was just one thing?
Yeah. My one thing is I was waiting for decades, literally, for the confidence fairy to come along with her magic wand and ding me on the head, because my dad and my sister, super confident. I wondered why I didn't get it until I realised that courage comes first, confidence comes second. Accessing that courage. I have this exercise I do called the courage bucket to help people access their courage. And when you do that, that's when you can start taking the next step and the next step and the next step. And it's those steps that lead you to confidence.
I'll absolutely second that. I think it's the action. What you project out there is never the reality. The action will get you there. Even if you don't feel like doing something, just what your expectation of what that will be like will be completely different. So take some action in whatever way.
Say yes.
Yes.
And then work out how. How will take care of itself when you say yes.
Amazing. I feel like students will have so much to learn from this episode, and I can encourage them to come to the IDP Instagram page, IDPAUS, and tell us what they think about it. But thank you so much, Anita, and so much, Karalyn, for being here and taking the time to let students know how to get a job, how to be that person that they've always wanted to be and evolve. I love that. Thank you so much.
Thanks, absolutely pleasure.